to another edition of Dance Mama, and today I'm really excited because I'm in conversation with Kristina Alleyne, and I am so thrilled because this is one of the first conversations that we've recorded with a pregnant person, which is really, really lovely. And I'm so keen to talk to Kristina about her amazing career and experiences, but particularly as she's recently been performing on stage pregnant, and also how she's navigating it, because for this old chick here, the first time I was going through it was about nearly 10 years ago now, and then my son is nearly 6. So as we know, in kind of the maternal space, things change quite rapidly, and particularly in the last few years with much more women speaking up about it and lots of different things coming on the scene. The changes are quite rapid, so I'm really excited to talk to her. Now, let me just tell you a little bit more about Alleyne Dance and Kristina and her twin sister, Sade, who's in the next room, busy mentoring as we speak. But the company was founded in 2014, and they're both award-winning multiple times dancers. We are so lucky to be in Kristina's company today. And their choreography aesthetic reflects the sisters' diverse backgrounds in athleticism and dance training. And within their abstract contemporary construct, Alleyne Dance blend West African, Caribbean, hip-hop, katak and circus skills delivered as a fast-paced and dynamic movement. And I'm sure many of you watching will have seen some of their work, and for those who haven't, this will be an enticing, exciting moment for you to try and find out more. They currently have 4 main stage works and stage productions. A Night's Game and The Other Side of Me have been presented internationally for several years in countries such as the UK, Australia, Germany, Austria, Spain, Canada, France, Italy, Norway, Slovenia, Greece, and more. And their multiple award-winning dance film Reunited was made in late 2020, and their current outdoor production Bonded has been presented in several festivals around the UK since the summer of 2021. The company is currently working on a new high-profile commission, and this is super exciting, with Martha Graham Company. How cool is that? And you're reviving the celebrated 1950s work Canticle for Innocent Comedians, which is just super exciting. And not only that, they've got a commission from Phoenix as well, and that's going to be released shortly, not too long away. And then a mass dance spectacular as part of Lewisham's year as the Mayor of London's London Borough of Culture 2022. There's more, stay with me. Learning and participation, which, as you know from my background, I'm very passionate about, is an incredibly important part of Alleyne Dance mission. And during the global pandemic, Kristina and Sade launched their online home workout series, which was such a cool pivot to have. And the mentorship program, as we know, with Sade next door, not my next door, Kristina's next door room, is still continuing now. But focusing just on Kristina herself, she trained at the Brit School and Northern School of Contemporary Dance, and we know that there's dance mamas in both of those organisations. But she's taught herself professionally with choreographers and companies including Tabaziva, Arthur Pitter. There's a whole raft, Ace Dance and Music. And from 2012, Kristina has also danced for Akram Company. Excitingly, in the London 2012, we love spirit of 2012, opening ceremony, Abide With Me, that beautiful piece of dance, which was so wonderful to have in that ceremony. So, without further ado, Kristina, how are you? And where are you at in terms of your journey with pregnancy at the moment?
So, hi Lucy, thank you so much for that introduction. It was very strange to hear it back. You know, you're always writing it down, but then to someone to say it back to you, it kind of makes you reflect a little bit. So thank you for that. I'm in my 3rd trimester right now in my pregnancy, and I've got a lot of jobs going on, which you've mentioned, and I'm still quite active. I'm still teaching, I'm still mentoring, and I've recently now pulled away from performing. Not so much because I feel like I can't. I think it's just more of the stress and the anxiety of actually trying to make myself prepared for it. So I feel very happy that I've done that because it was my choice rather than feeling like I can't.
Yeah.
So yeah, mental state, physical state, I'm quite good right now. I feel healthy, I feel happy, and just kind of excited for the jobs that I'm up to right now in my life.
Yeah, and I think it would just be really interesting to sort of tell us a bit more kind of what does a typical day for you at the moment kind of look like?
Oh, that's a good question and difficult because every day is very different. So my typical start of the morning would be yoga. I do yoga in the morning and I also do my own workouts, just something that's a ritual that stays the same. And it has stayed the same before pregnancy and during pregnancy, although during pregnancy, I'm just aware of certain positions like twisting and like just how I use my breath as well. But then I go to my calendar and see what's happening. So like some days it's more like I'm online and I'm teaching in my living room or I'm mentoring, loads of emails, or other days I'm physical, I'm going out to do commissions or rehearsals, or I'm researching for myself. And some days it's for Alleyne Dance, which is my company, and some days it's for Kristina Alleyne in other companies. So my days vary from being very physical to being not so much physical, but it always starts with the physicality in the morning.
Yeah, and having that brilliant connection, isn't it? And just tuning in with your body and working out kind of where you're at. And it's brilliant because you kind of touched on something which actually hasn't moved on that much in the last few years, particularly for dance, in terms of guidance and support with what you can and or should and all this kind of stuff should be doing physically. And it's very much at the moment we're still in a space of trying to tune in with where we're at and how we feel that day, and knowing our range of movement is so much greater than lots of other pregnant women in the general public, and our kind of not tolerance, I don't know, for physical activity in a way, I suppose, but kind of how we're used to doing a lot physically, that can still continue because your body's primed for it, but just making some of those reasonable adjustments as you would with any other kind of need that you might have physically. But what we're trying to work on and working on at the moment is a PhD into looking at some of those specifics. And currently we're drawing on other disciplines such as running or athletics or other research findings that we have in elite sport, and trying to bring them across to the dance world whilst we're still developing our own research. And I by no means are the only person doing that. There's a couple of other researchers and organizations that are also trying to, as a whole movement, trying to increase that, because we're still very much in that space of digging into your own resilience and specialist knowledge. But it's brilliant to hear that you've got that kind of consistency when there's so much change, but also the organizational skills you have to have and the support you have around you to help you move through what is usually quite a chaotic career, to enable all of that to flow and happen.
Like, I feel very lucky that I work for myself in the sense that Alleyne Dance, I'm co-artistic director with my twin sister Sade. So in terms of how we organize our schedule, we can be quite honest and flexible of what we want to do and what we can and who do we delegate work to. And we've got such an amazing team, like from our producers to the admin to the managers, that again, the whole team are flexible in the sense of how we work with each other. Like our producer, she's already got a kid, so we're flexible in just the time management, like when can we have meetings, when can't we have meetings? Oh, this week is half term, let's respect that. So I think we've got a good balance within our company, but it could be because it's based around Sade and myself, that are sisters, we're family. So we're aware of the people that we enter in the company, that they're also, we respect them as people, and that family essence that we, when they need help, we're there for them. When they need more support, when they can do less work, then maybe someone else picks up the shovel for them. So for example, we're in creation for a new production called Far From Home, which will be premiered in November at the Place. Well, previewed actually, because we're still working towards our premiere. And we are arranging the rehearsals with the dancers, and it'll be the first time that it'll not just be Shadi and myself performing, but it'll be me and other dancers that we auditioned for, which is quite exciting. And also we've got a massive participation part of it, that they will also be incorporated into the performance. So we are arranging rehearsals of what can I physically do? What is my input in the creation? Is my character a full character there, or do I come in now and then? So we're being creative of what is possible, what is not. Because if I'm due in July, then we have rehearsals in June. And then we have rehearsals in September, October, leading up to the preview in November. So we're being realistic and trying to plan things now, to think about what parts that can I be involved in? Can I do it remotely? And yeah, Shadi's taken a bigger backpack in a way to kind of fill in for that role.
Yeah, and I think what is beautiful there, you're highlighting, is so many things that is just so brilliant. But the creativity, like using your creative dance skills and creative brains into how the time and the creation period itself then manifests, to allow that space around birth and all of that to happen, but also thinking creatively about how that return will happen within the context and the framework of what you've already got booked in. And just shout out to Grace Okereke, who has spoken to Dance Mama before. Do go and visit her interview too. And I think having that presence of somebody who has got children, or a deep empathy or understanding of that process within the support network and the work network, is hugely influential in terms of how smoothly you'll feel this process is. And we know for many people who are in the freelance sector, that support network might be there up until birth, and then it disappears for a time. And what we try to encourage people to do is, from the freelance side, is to look at what strategies they can try and put in place to emulate what you might have in a more structured framework of an organization or a company to support you through this process, because it absolutely can happen. Because for some people, the concept of pregnant dancer or returning to dance as a parent is, they can't quite get their head around it, which is really archaic. But it can absolutely happen, and happen well, if that support network around you is there, and also the time and the flexibility is given to it. And it's a bit like improv, basically, isn't it?
Yeah.
the whole experience. And have you, in terms of your re-entry, have you thought, and we're skipping ahead a bit because we're skipping past the main event of the arrival, but have you also started to think about structuring in support for the baby during the rehearsals and those sorts of things yet, or not?
Oh yeah, no, definitely have. What's been beautiful is that a lot of the festivals that Shadi and I teach at during the summertime, they have like a childcare operation as well. So this is something that they've always told us, we're like, when are you guys going to have kids? We're waiting. When is Alleyne Dance expanding? So this is something that's going to be really helpful in 2023 when I return to the summer workshops, that I can bring my child with me and have the support by the organization. Yeah. But then also it's about, when Shadi and I go into commissions, when we're together, is it one of us leads, one of us is looking after the child, do we swap? So I think we're just being flexible of how we can manage the time, what can we physically do, what can't we do. Also, my partner's going to join me on tour as well when I'm traveling, just because he's stepping away from stage and he's going more into science practice and biology. So it's having that support also from my family, like my mom, like she's also wants to come with me when I'm traveling. So yeah, it's just kind of being flexible. And what's been great about our producer, Grace, which you mentioned, is that when we do big traveling, such as going to Bern or we're going to Australia, she's already negotiating a big family room. You know, oh, Christina's not going to be on her own. She's going to have a kid with her. She might have a partner with her. Can this be incorporated in the accommodation, in the travel? So it's just about allowing ourselves to include that in the conversations that are happening now when we're planning ahead.
Absolutely. And that is just, it's just so heartening to hear, because that is exactly what should be happening, and being inclusive of the fact that you're a package deal now. And actually that I mean, in the past or even now sometimes, but you know, there's kind of been a negative outlook on that, but it's ridiculous, isn't it? Because it's part of starting a family, and all of this experience is going to undoubtedly enrich your creativity, your performance, quality, all of those things, because your life experience is expanding in that way as well.
It's so special. Like when I performed my last show, we did A Night's Game, which is our first duet that Shadi and I ever created. And the rehearsals were hard, you know, just because I started to feel like, oh, wow, my ankles are different. They're a bit softer. I didn't have the power of jumping, or, you know, just the certain things that I physically felt in my body slightly different.
Yeah.
And it was emotional, and but it was beautiful to have the support from my sister. But when I performed, I can't tell you, like, I feel emotional talking about it. I felt like I was flying. And because the piece A Night's Game is about incarceration, it made me look into more stories about females being incarcerated, and what happens if they're pregnant when they're incarcerated, and what does that mean if they have a child that they can't connect to, that they can't do the natural instincts that you want to have to nurture your your newborn. And it really enriched my performance, and I felt unstoppable. Like, me and my sister, we always talk about having no regrets when you finish performing. Like, whatever happens, it happens, and you accept it. If you fall, you fall, you know, like, and we were always there to catch each other. Shadi caught me and my baby. So actually it was a trio that we were doing, and it was such a beautiful experience. Like, I can't explain the richness that it has, like carrying something inside of you, but also sharing this energy with people and not hiding away. Like, it's such a special moment that I feel grateful that I had that experience.
Absolutely. And I mean, unfortunately, I didn't get to see it, but seeing those images on social media, I was like, yes, we can, more visibility. It's amazing. And just to hear as well, you're just now you talking about that, it's so valuable, and we really want more artistic directors, choreographers to really understand that it's adding a huge amount of value, because that archaic view of it changing the aesthetic or changing a character or an emotion or all that kind of stuff, I think we just really need to leave that in the 20th century.
Yeah.
just leave it, because as I said, for all those reasons, you know, I really, you know, felt what you were just saying there. It's so beautiful, and just has so much meaning, and just that celebration of the female body having that power as kind of a walking organic life support system, as well as being able to do 700 million other pieces of choreography.
But I do have to mention, so my next performance, which is not with Alleyne Dance, which I was going to be in it, is with Akram Company, and we're doing Kaash, which will be played at the South Bank the 20th to the 23rd of April.
Yeah.
And it's a quintet. With Sade as well, she's in it, and it's like a reunion. Like, everyone's coming back, and it was meant to be in 2020, and then during the pandemic, it got postponed till now. And I made the decision Christmas, actually, like I think it was Christmas Day, because usually Akram Khani does the whole Merry Christmas phone calls, and I told myself, okay, I'm gonna tell him now. So I told him, oh, by the way, and he was super excited. He loves families, he loves babies. So it was really beautiful. And then we spoke about Kaash in April. And at the time, you know, I was 3 months pregnant. You know, I'm only now telling people because I feel like, okay, it's, you know, you've passed that precarious moment.
Yes.
And he asked me, what do I want to do? You know, he didn't tell me, he asked me. And that was a hard question, because in my mind, I'm like, I don't know. And you get a lot of feedback, and you get a lot of kind of advice from pregnant women and mamas actually telling me, oh, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And in my head, I had to try and think, what can I do and what do I want to do? And I think that's like very important. Like, I had dreams of like, can I do this show? Then I was thinking, is it important to do it? What's the most important thing? And then I made the decision to not do the performance, but inquired, what if I became the rehearsal director and actually managed the show?
Fantastic.
And I got gifted that opportunity to do that. So we're starting very soon, because the show's coming very soon. And I'm leading the rehearsals, I'm rehearsal director, and I still have that connection with the group, that reunion feeling that I wanted, but also I can work my artistry in a different way, and I don't have the pressure of, am I going to be okay to do a 4-show run? What if one day I'm great, one day I'm not? What if I feel sick this day? There's so much worries that can come in, and just by making that decision for myself, and having the space to decide, it lifted a lot of things away from my shoulders. I feel very happy with the choices. I feel very happy that I had the support from the company, and I'm excited.
Yeah, that is incredibly exciting. And like you say, it's so powerful that you're empowered. You know, I think that is a huge key thing, is, you know, hats off to Akram, brilliant, for giving you that option and that choice, and but also for you really to step into the rehearsal directing role and exploring that at this point. And everybody's journey is totally different, and by having that option, it really helps. I think it's really hard for some dancers who might not have had as much leadership experience as you, or been in the more choreographic roles and leadership and mentoring roles, to find their voice, to be able to say what they want, or voice their need. I'm really hoping by some of them listening to this, or following Dance Mama's work and the movement in general, that we empower more dancers to speak up for themselves, where their artistic director or choreographer might not be so open and knowledgeable. And I always find that quite confusing, particularly for contemporary dance, because we usually brand ourselves, oh yeah, we're really progressive, we're really inclusive, you know, and it's, you know, not professing but practicing those values. And it's so brilliant to hear that is happening for you, and for you to be such a fantastic role model for current generation above you, the upcoming generations, to see that you are able to be so creative and give so much of your force to everyone, and artistry, and be pregnant at the same time, and go into motherhood. It's brilliant. It's so good.
I do always tell people that people are not mind readers, so try not to assume a response, try not to assume a judgment. Like, you have to say what you want and what you need, and usually it's hard to say what you want. What you need is a little bit easier, because there is this desperation, but but what you want sometimes is the hardest one to let out. And I try to, when I'm mentoring and working with people, it's like, tell me what you want. I might not be able to achieve it, but at least we know where you stand and we can figure out something. You know, like, if you don't ask, you don't get. So I think it's very important that we're aware of the wants and then the needs.
Yeah, and so much of your brilliant connection, and I'm sure so much of that comes from having a twin sister there, that communication, that connection is so strong, that culture is across the whole of the company and the organization, and that openness really then translates absolutely into the amazing successes and achievements that you've already had and that you will no doubt have going forwards. It's superb.
Oh, absolutely. Like Sade, like she's, you know, when I told her we weren't together. We just did our performance in Bern. So technically I had 2 performances pregnant, but the first one I didn't know. So in Switzerland we were performing and I was like, why am I so tired? But I was pregnant and I had no idea. But everything worked okay. I was very physical. I was rolling on my stomach. I was, you know, having a wine after performing and going saunas and everything. So when I found out, I was like, but you know, it was quite high in COVID time. So, and we were separate and Shadi sent me her results for COVID. And I told her, okay, well, this is my results. And that's when I showed her my positive pregnancy test. And her reaction was like, literally like, we're having a baby. Oh my God. Like, I'm so lucky to have someone like her that she gives me the space to make my choices, but she's really there to catch me. Like if I fall, she's there and I'm like, where did you come from? Like she's literally my support system. And she said to me, I asked her, how do you feel? Because your life is changing, but it's not because you decided to make the change. I made the change. And I just asked her, how do you feel about that? Because it affects her as well, because especially this summer, she's doing majority of the shows and the teaching. And luckily we have dancers in our company now, but it is a bigger toll, like a toll that she has to take. And she said, I'm so happy to do it. One is because she's hoping that I can take up emails, which I have been. No, that was more like a joke. But 2 is that she's hoping that she'll have that support when it's her turn. And I'm like, absolutely. Like, so I'm very lucky that I have someone like her that's so supportive, but so passionate about our lives. You know, it's not just about work, it's about life, you know, that we find enjoyment in what we do. And that passion we try to share with people, that it's not just about succeeding. Actually, success comes from happiness and honesty and doing what you enjoy rather than what you think you should.
Yeah. And as you said, that the approach you've had in terms of the advice, you always get advice, don't you, at big life events, that you're getting to be able to kind of wheedle out the noise and be able to hang on to pieces of information that are more aligned with you, because you're so clear on what those values are. It's a little bit easier to do. I'm quite interested, just because of the times that we're living in, which is still a bit strange, aren't they? A little bit strange with the COVID stuff, but kind of what your experience has been with your midwife or your healthcare team in terms of, do they have an appreciation for what you do for a living, and have they taken that into account when they're supporting you?
That's a good question. It's been hard, like answering the COVID part. It's been hard in the sense of going to the hospitals and the scans, like in the waiting rooms, my partner has to wait kind of outdoors, and then I have to text him to say, come, I'm in room 4, you know, and then he's like trying to find me. So it's been hard in that way, that we're quite separate when it comes to these beautiful moments. But I'm hoping by the time it gets to July, things will be a bit easier, that we can experience things together a little bit more. They're aware that I'm physical. So for example, we started to understand characteristics of my baby already. And I've realized when I'm moving, like especially dancing, yoga, my baby's relaxing and chilling. And then when it's time for me to relax, so like in yoga, you have savasana, when you have to lie down, or just at the end of the day when I sit down and relax, is the baby's like, it's my time. So like in the scans, like the sonographer will be asking me, can you try and go upside down? Can you do this? And I'm like, yeah, I can, but I don't think anything's gonna happen. And then they're just kind of amazed of how much I'm moving. But yeah, like I get encouraged to do what I do, you know, like they're very encouraging, like, yes, keep moving. They've mentioned that, you know, not moving can cause a lot of women pregnant, like depression can come up by sitting down a lot. So they advise me to keep active and do what you enjoy. They mentioned about people do horse riding, and they encourage them, if you do horse riding, continue to do it. So it's, you know, when you read the internet, they tell you different things, but then when you speak to people, they encourage you to be yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And what has brilliantly happened over the last few years through a group of different specialists, but connected with Active Pregnancy Foundation, is we now have chief medical officer guidelines for the general public for women in pre and postnatally in terms of activity levels, which has never happened before. But what we're trying to work towards for dance is getting something similar and a bit more specific for us. But there's definitely lots of information on our research and resources pages that can really help in trying to make sure that you're as informed as we can be for those of us who are a lot more physically active. I mean, some mums will talk to me about who work in dance in terms of their range of movement, because you're kind of advised relaxing, watch your joints because it makes you more flexible, but then their GP or their midwife not realizing the range of movement already and then going, oh, being a bit shocked. It's like, well, no, actually that's less than I'm used to doing.
I did have to reach out to my dancer friends that just gave birth, especially one that I have like a really close friend recently. She's a yoga instructor, Letty Mitchell, and I think she's under Body by Letty on Instagram, but she just gave birth, and I had to message her and ask her loads of questions, because on the internet it is for the everyday person, where I do realize that athletes and dancers, we're not the everyday, because our bodies and our routines are very extreme. So I did have to answer things like, in yoga, can I do this? People say I shouldn't, but I feel like I can. You know, can I lie on my back? Why don't I lie on my back? Did you lie on your back? You know, like I asked about your hips, like, can I keep stretching my hips? Did you stretch your hips? How do your hips feel now? Like I had loads of like questions that I couldn't really find, and it was very like dance related questions. I was like, oh, do you feel this in your back? How can I click this? You know, like I just have all these questions that I want to do, but especially in the early period, like the first 3 months, where it's like the precarious moment, I didn't know what I could and can't do, and you know, my body still felt the same, you know, and I was very lucky that I didn't have the nausea or the throwing up. So there's a loads of questions where I was like, am I doing the right thing? Can I do this? So I had to reach out to dancers to help me, because I couldn't find it online. And luckily I found Dance Mamas that had like loads of accounts of things. But yeah, I did feel lost at one moment.
Absolutely. And I think that is still very much there, because at the moment we've only really got other case studies, and again, they're there in case you haven't got somebody nearby. It's brilliant you've got her, but if you haven't got somebody nearby, or their parent, but they might be a bit further on, or they might have forgotten that bit, or you know, it's really difficult to get that kind of resonance, as well as the information and knowing what's safe, what can I do, and how should I do it. And I really hope we can start to alleviate some of that confusion, I think, as time progresses. But also, I think you learn so much in the first one. The second time, I'm not saying anything there, but a second time round, or third or fourth, or however many anybody goes for, you've then got that kind of, again, it's a bit like doing anything, you've got that embodied knowledge of what's happening, so you've got more information to go on. But you're absolutely right, it's very different for athletes and dancers as opposed to general public's experience, and it's those nuanced things that really need the support to help make you feel at your best and go through that transition as smoothly as possible. Kristina, have you got, if somebody, I don't know, it didn't have to be in your company, but somebody in the sort of upcoming generation was thinking about whether or not they could have a family, or whether they wanted to be pregnant and dance, would you have any advice for them at this point from your experience so far?
Yeah, my advice would be to, I've got many things actually. I think my advice would be to get advice from other people,
Mm-hmm.
but try to hear yourself the loudest.
Yeah.
I think that can be very difficult sometimes, that you get so much input from everyone's experiences that sometimes it's like you don't know what your feelings are towards this. So I think it's very important that get advice from people, but also really ask yourself, what do you want? And then you tell yourself, what do I need and how? And I think that's very important, just because then you know where you're going from. You know, it's like, this is something that I really want in my life. I want to have a family, or I want to dance and have a family, or I want to dance, coach and study and have a family. All these things are possible. It's just you have to really know what you want, and then it's easier to go to the next, because then you know the questions to ask people.
Yeah.
You know, I would say try to don't be afraid to reach out to people that are maybe not in your closed circuit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like, what's great, we have dance mamas, and you've got all the dancers, the women, the people on there, that don't be afraid to actually reach out. Like, we've got social media nowadays, which is like, there's like negatives and positives. However, the positives is that you can find someone and you can contact people. So I think don't be afraid to reach out to someone that is not in your circuit. For advice or for guidance or just questions. I think that's very important. And what other advice would be to stay active. If you're active, stay active. Don't be afraid to be yourself, and don't be afraid to do the physical work that you enjoy.
And just beautiful messages. Final question, just to sort of bring that all together. Have there been any particular role models in dance or out of dance that you've been looking to over this period?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I mean, I have been looking at like Ballet Black and Gregory McComa's companies, like just kind of like the bigger ballet companies, Ballet Flanders. There's a dancer called Nancy that just had a kid in Ballet Flanders, and I worked with them in Belgium before. And I'm mentioning these dancers that are in big companies, you know, and it kind of worried me. I was like, it feels safer as a dancer to have a baby in a big company like a ballet company, because you have loads of people in the company and you're on a different type of payment system. Like, it's very different from then, I guess, in smaller companies where you get paid for what you do. You know, you wouldn't necessarily be in a retainer. So it just kind of made me think about how I want my company to be in the future, and the dancers that I work with, that I would love to support them where they feel like this is a family that they belong to, that it's not just for one particular project, but it's something that is a growing relationship where they feel like they can still do their individual work outside, but they have this support system, like, I'm going to have a family during here, or can Alleyne Dance support me while I study, but also I can be in this project at the same time. You know, like, it just made me think about, how do I grow my company and how do I support people? Yeah, I don't know to answer that question, but that was how it inspired me, and not necessarily physically, because I'm like, I see the ballet dancers, I'm like, oh yeah, look at their bodies. I'm like, my performance is very different, you know, like the way I work, like physically. But it definitely inspired me, like how the company support the mamas, the soon-to-be mamas.
Amazing. That is so wonderful to know. And like I said, you're such a fantastic role model. This is such a special time, and there'll be no doubt so many dancers out there in lots of different genres who will be seeing you and watching you and knowing that it's possible. But it's so wonderful to hear that, and I wouldn't expect anything less, that you're thinking about others and how that will how that can manifest in your company, and you can continue that family feeling that's absolutely at the heart, isn't it, of Alleyne Dance, and how that's going to expand and grow. And I just really hope, I'm going to be cheeky while we're taping this, that you'll come back and you'll come and talk to us a little bit later on when you feel ready, when you're through the next phase. And it would just be great to kind of keep in touch in that way and see how everything unfolds for you. And again, just sharing your experience has such huge power, and we're just so grateful that you've reached out and you want to share that story, particularly on Dance Mama. It's a huge privilege, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really grateful to have this platform to talk about it, and of course I'll be coming back. I would love to talk. I'm in my mind, I'm preparing to perform in November. So let's see how that goes. I will keep you updated.
Oh, yeah. No, we don't have to book the time now.
Yeah.
Kristina, it has been so lovely speaking to you. We're really excited for you, and so it's just so wonderful news. And we'll keep our eyes, and particularly on the Akram performance coming up, and then the next Alleyne Dance production, as Kristina said, is at the Place in November. So get booking your tickets for that. Lovely to speak to you, Kristina.
Thank you.